Hello YouTube. So I'm doing this video because in the past I did Glenmorangie dirty. So about a month and a half ago I did a review of Glengoyne 10-year-old. And as a sort of rhetorical point to indicate the slightly less than desirable state of single malts in the sub $40 range, I pointed out that if you're looking for something in that price range that has both an age statement and is bottled at above 40%, there are exactly four options to choose from. And I got that statement right. What I got wrong was two things in that statement. First, I included Speyburn 10-year-old, and I didn't realize that they dropped their additional 3% a while back, so they're out. But I'd also forgotten Glenmorangie 10-year-old, the original, this thing here. Because basically, I checked the websites, the store websites, and they all were telling me 80%. The pictures were saying 80%, or I'm sorry, 80 proof. And so I just assumed at some point they dropped 3%. But when I actually went to the store to check, there it was at still at 43%. That's kind of a unique thing to North America, I think, and we should be glad for it. So that leaves the collection of single malts below $40 that you should buy. At we're still at 4, so we've got the Loch Lomond 12-year-old, which is a little bit of weirdo. Tomatin 12-year-old, which is also weird, but sort of more has itself together. Glengoyne 10-year-old, which is extremely good, and actually very good, and Glenmorangie original. So so I thought, to make it up, I would do a review of that bottle. But then I remembered a couple of years ago I had bought like the gift set they put out, which is kind of great. I love gift sets. I love the miniatures. I love getting a chance to try things. And I thought, I can just review all of them in addition to the 10-year-old. So these are not. I bought this like 2 years ago, maybe 3. So these are not completely up to date, but they should be representative of what's out there on the shelf. So what we got in the set is the 10-year-old original, and then a trio of 12-year-olds with different finishes, and we'll get into that in a second. But I've been talking too much already, so let's get into the nature of the malt. I'm going to add a little bit of water to these before I try them. No trying them neat this time. So the thing about Glenmorangie is it's possibly the least Scotch malt-like of any Scotch malt that I know of. They have these enormous stills, pot stills. They're not actually that wide and fat as say you would get in Tomatin, but they're very, very tall. They're like something like 26 feet tall. So think the length of like a London bus minus a little bit. That's how tall those stills are. And the entire point of them is to keep the sort of heavy congenitors from getting into the spirit that comes out. So this is not like Auchentoshan or something where you're just distilling it a third time. This is, but it's also not like a continuous still. This is a pot still where you're just, making it very, very hard for those heavier compounds to get out. So the result is a whiskey that's very, very just spirity and kind of eau de vie-ish. Yeah. So on the nose of this 10-year-old, which I'm going to start with, it's very spirity. You're kind of getting pear and some red apple and plum and a kind of tea note. That's gonna be a common theme in these. Like black tea, maybe like a Darjeeling or something like that. It's very clean. There's a little bit of oak in there. There's we're getting some vanilla bean, like a little creme brulee, but it's very much on pear and tea and sort of that spirity white peppery note. There's some sparkling wine, like a no, I was going to say a cava, but it's more like a cremant, like a cremant from Alsace or something. Um, and actually, lots of white wine in this. Kind of a like a Sauvignon, like a Chenin Blanc note, like that appley honey thing. But also some Chardonnay, like even some white Rioja. There's a grape, Viura in Rioja, which is very appley, um, and and a little bit of like orange. So Tomatin, which is its neighbor to the south, is very very aggressively sort of orangey. This is more. This has the orange note, but it's less funky and you know bitter sour tangerine. This is more like orange essence, or even like Grand Marnier or something. And then on the palate, mm, this is a very dense whiskey. Um, there's lots of things going on, but they're all kind of wrapped into each other. Like one big tight ball of kind of spirity, yeah, eau de vie kind of character. So there's lots of spices. Clove is in there, white pepper again, um, apple kirsch, big time on the kirsch, applejack maybe a little bit, um, vanilla bean, kind of wrapped into the peppery note, um, and that tea note is there too, but it's more like a kind of a bitter, like an old tea bag note. If you were kind of throw an old Lipton bunch of old Lipton bags into your mouth, kind of suck on them for a while. It's kind of, but it's pleasant. Um, mhm. Lots of apple, lots of pear, very spirity. There's a little hint of bitterness on the back end, like the tea tannin note, but also like just some like old gym socks or something like that. And again, uh, yeah, let's go orange essence, like, but also like kind of bitter orange peel thing, and a little bit of nuttiness, maybe mm, like like a walnut shell kind of character to this. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, the way this is made just makes it just hang together in this tight ball of stuff. It reminds me more of like a cognac or even like a rye or something than a traditional malt whiskey, but it's very good. I would score this 83 out of 100. Um, it's a standard for a reason, but in a way, it's also not necessarily that representative of the range of malts. This is kind of its own thing. I mean, you can compare it to Tomatin and a couple of others, but yeah, Glenmorangie is just a really unique, interesting malt. So now let's move on to the other three. There's a couple of things to know about these three guys. So all these are 12 years old. All these are finishes, different finishes. So they've basically matured at, you know, however long in probably ex-bourbon barrels, right? Maybe a couple of sherry barrels thrown in there. And they've given them a little bit of extra time in whatever other cask they had or wanted. And this is kind of where that started. Um, if you're in the liquor store nowadays and you're kind of wondering, why someone, whence all the finishes in rum, in whiskey, in, you know, anything. Why did somebody finish your favorite rye in like a Banyule cask or something? It's Glenmorangie's fault. They were the first ones to really start experimenting with, picking up old wine casks and throwing their spirit in there for a little while. And that's, in a way, it's been successful for them, right? And we're going to taste through these. But in a way, it's a little bit. I'm gonna say a little bit unfortunate for them for two reasons. Number one thing I found is that finishes tend not to go very deep. Like often with a finish on, if you buy Glen Talkers or something with a finish, often you'll leave it in the glass with a little bit of water, come back to it, and it's just Glen Talkers again with no finish. The finish is totally blown off. But the other factor is that Glenmorangie, as I was saying, is a very spirity um, kind of malt. It doesn't, and especially if you go into some of the older bottlings or some of the independent bottlings from single malt whiskey, which have used very fresh barrels, it doesn't necessarily react that well to lots of fresh wood. I mean, there's a way of which of all the malts of Scotland, like Glenmorangie is one of the ones you'd least want to give more wood influence, but nevertheless, they're kind of the ones who went there. So hopefully, I'm not sort of giving away my cards with this. Okay, let's go down the line. We're going to start with the Lasanta, which was finished in, I don't know if you can see this, finished in sherry casks. Now, that's a little bit vague. There's lots of different kinds of sherry, but the ones that tend to be used in whiskey maturation, that tends to be shorthand for like oxidized sherry. So we're talking Amontillado, Palo Cortado, and Oloroso. They might have thrown a couple of, Pedro Jimenez casks in there for fun, but probably not too many. So on the nose. Okay, so you're getting a blanket of sherry maturation. You're getting like prunes and black pepper, but it's really just kind of covering over good old-fashioned Glenmorangie. It's the plums, some pears, the that Kirsch thing is back, and the sort of the black tea thing is back, but it's not so much Darjeeling anymore. It's more like a mix of different stuff, like an English breakfast tea kind of thing. A little dustiness, like a dusty attic. A little marzipan, green raisin. I'm sorry, golden raisins. Getting my colors mixed up. Nutshells again, but more like toasted nutshells. It smells like almost like a Glenmorangie vatted with the young Amontillado or something. To be honest, and on the palate, dried fruit, big time. Lots of prunes, lots of raisins, golden raisins. Why am I doing that? Dried cherries in there too. Black pepper, loads of black pepper. That's kind of a classic sherry cask note. Kind of woody bitterness, kind of an ashtray note, like a cigar, like a you smoked a Maduro and it's all ashy in the ashtray, that kind of thing. But the finish is actually, hang on. Yeah, all the action is up front, all the sherryness, and the finish just kind of fades away really fast. You get a little bit of like honey note, like a clover honey, maybe something aromatic. The Kirsch thing again, more black tea. We're back to Darjeeling. A little hint of bitter orange again. So we're still in sort of Glenmorangie land. Clove, a little bitterness, a little newspaper in there, and like throw me like one red apple in there too. Um, this is very good. The bottling strength, 46%. This is 43. This is 46. It's helping this. It's helping this a lot. I'm going to give this. But it's still kind of in the same neighborhood, except for with this sort of added blanket of sherryness. I would call this an 83 plus. The finish is still kind of falling down on me a little bit, but it's good. This is a hair bit better than the 10-year-old. Okay, let's move on to the Quinta Ruban, which is matured in port casks, or finished in port casks. So here's the thing about port. I think people who don't know their wine that well tend to hear port and they kind of just file it with sherry. They think, oh, it's a fortified wine. They're the same thing. You know, why not? What's wrong with the port finish? They're not the same wine, aside from the fact that they're made in different countries. Sherry they're both fortified, right? But, you know, sherry is almost, most of the time, dry. There are a couple of sweet sherries out there. Port is, with a few exceptions, a dessert wine. It's almost always going to be sweet, unless there's like a white port or something. Sherry is always made with white grapes, right? So no tannins. Port is red grapes, so you're getting tannins. So immediately you're sort of getting a few red flags in you know, using port wood for whiskey, because on the one hand, dessert wine casks can be a little bit dangerous, and red wine casks generally don't get along with whiskey, you know, really at all. So we're getting like half a red flag and a really big red flag. But carrying on, let me adjust my notes here. Into Ruban. Okay. Okay, we've it's still Glenmorangie with a blanket over it. In this case, the blanket is like it's like you know when you go to IHOP and you have those different syrups that you can put on your pancakes. This is like if you kind of poured that strawberry syrup, I guess it is, over your Glenmorangie. There's some cherry in there too. It's very red fruity. Beyond that, you got like just pear, kirsch, plum, black tea, yeah, English breakfast again, and just tons of ripe red fruit. And there's a little bit of like rosé in there, like I don't know, like Southern Italian rosé wine on the palate. I'm gonna get that another squirt of water. Hang on. Gah. That is okay. It's not sweet, but it's semi-dry. Can I put it that way? We're sort of making a nod at liqueur territory, but it's not too bad. It's very cloying though. Let me take a glass of water. You know, red fruit, strawberries, and cherries. Tons of that. Red apple, pear. Am I starting to repeat myself here? Yeah, applejack and aged applejack this time. Like kirsch again, and that black tea note. This is yeah, more of an Assam kind of tea this time. No, wait, maybe more like there's almost like a lemony twinge. So maybe more like Earl Grey, if I can. Yeah, let's go Earl Grey. And the finish is just kind of this bitter, kind of newspapery black pepper note, which I'm not enjoying that much. Yeah, with the sort of pancake syrup thing, is hitting me pretty hard here. It's not ruining this whiskey, but it's definitely throwing it off its balance. I'm going to give this 81 out of 100. It's my least favorite of these so far, and I think it might have blown out my palate a little bit. So please bear with me as I go through this last one. All right. So we're on number 4. This is the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, which is matured in Sauterne casks. So Sauterne is another dessert wine, but it's not fortified. This is made with white grapes in the south of Bordeaux. So it's not, they're not like dosing the wine or anything, or even keeping it unfermented. They're just, basically, this is a style where you're letting the grapes, go way deep into the season and just get big and fat and eventually start to rot, but in like a nice way, where the rot is adding a little bit of character. And then you make your wine, and then you keep some of the juice unfermented, little extra sugar in there, and that's how you get a Sauterne. They can be super aggressive in the first years of their lives, but once you give them a decade or two, they're just lovely little wines. Not little, they're very big wines. Okay, this is actually quite quiet on the nose. It's kind of, oh, there we go. White pepper, again, kind of a funky floral thing. A little bit of like lemon zest, flowers, orange peel as well. The tea thing, Earl Grey. I'm definitely Earl Grey this time. Pear, but more like a Bosc pear this time. Golden raisin, wildflower honey, quite peppery, white pepper again, marzipan, so kind of a nutty note, a nutty sweet note. Nice. On the palate, ooh, kind of starts nice, comes in kind of a little bit sweet, but in like a way that's much more balanced than this. And then kind of gradually turns a kind of sour and bitter. So we got the pear apple thing, which is Glenmorangie, the black tea thing, which is Glenmorangie. But beyond that, there's like a kind of creme brulee, like sour creme brulee. I don't know if that makes sense. Dried apricots, Darjeeling tea, kind of confectionery, not quite confection. It's almost like Chinese buns, the bean paste buns, except no bean paste, kind of like that. Kind of a waxy honey thing, and that orange note, but it's actually quite unhappy on the back end. Kind of gets a little bit more astringent than I would like, but it's nice. I like this. Let me come back to the first one. No, I was trying to decide if I like this better than the 10-year-old, and I don't think I do. Again, the extra bottling strength is helping it, but it's just not as finessed and balanced, even though there's a little bit more going on. But I'm going to give it the same score. I'm going to give this 83 out of 100. So to repeat the scores, I believe this was an 83, 83 plus, 81, and 83. So the running theme you should get from this is, even with the extra finishes and even with a little extra bottling strength, these really aren't. This will make a hair better, but these really aren't as a whole, adding much more to regular old Glenmorangie. Let me try it again. It's just a lovely still signature, and with the mix of casks they're using is kind of spot on. It's simple, but it's perfect. If I can put it that way. That apple pear, orange peel tea thing is it's just a lovely combination of elements. Would I love to see this at 46% or higher? Yeah. Would I love to see it unchill filtered? Absolutely. But it's still got my respect, especially, and I would love for the rest of the world to get that 43% as well. What do you do with Glenmorangie? I mean, this is a distillery. It's kind of made its name on these, finishes. But I mean, if I were to try to make the best whiskey I could out of it, it's not where I would go. I think the interest is in the spirit itself, not in what you can do with sort of wood technology. I mean, if I were running the place, I'm not, because I would probably run into the ground because I don't know what I'm doing. But if I had my choice, I'd be looking at, younger bottlings, to be honest. Don't go into would it be lovely at 25 if you had it in a dead cask? Yeah, but you know, like an 8-year-old cask strength bottling, no bells or whistles, just straight, ex bourbon casks, I think would be lovely, and I think would be very well received. Ardbeg's been heading that direction for a while, and Ardbeg is kind of the sister distillery to Glenmorangie. So I don't know. I'd love to see him give it a shot. Anyways, well worth buying among the 4 malts that are worth buying under $40, or at least which follow the rules I've set out. And a very interesting distillery. I'd love to see where they go in the future, and if they, hopefully they will move a little bit away from the wood technology here and focus more on what they've got here. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, and cheers.